I'm sorry to do this to you because you got a smile on your face. You're my dude. I want to see you happy. But it's time to talk about the New York Jets, who I'm rooting for to go an entire season without an interception.
I'm rooting for them to not have a field goal kick blocked on Sunday so we could buy the shirts, hang the banner.
Celebrate it.
2025 field goal protection champions, the New York Jets.
Which of the stats most damning on the season, what would you say is most impressive? The fact that they're about to go an entire season, we'll see what happens with Mitch Trubisky, but let's just say they go an entire season without an interception. You've got Garrett Wilson, still their leading receiver. I think that's pretty cool.
390 yards, leads the team.
I think that's awesome. That's incredible. So which of those two would you say is the most quote-unquote impressive?
I think the interception stat is something we'll never see for the rest of our lives. Again, by accident, every team could get a pick. I think the teams that are in front of the Jets all have at least 7 interceptions on the year. The fact that a team with a defensive coach who was a Pro Bowl cornerback in his heyday, he's 4th all-time in Jet history in interceptions, could go 16 games and in all likelihood 17 games without a pick. It's mind-boggling. It's inexplicable. I don't know how anyone could explain that one stat.
So let's stay here for a moment, just because we like to, bask in our own misery, if you will. Worst December point differentials in NFL history atop the list. The 2025 New York Jets, minus 107. It's pretty good.
History.
Because Aaron Glenn this week said the Jets, the players, have bought into the foundation. So, don't let the numbers get in the way of what the players are buying into. Minus 107 in the month of December. That's not great. They're 0-5 in games against divisional opponents. Their point differential in those division games, minus 95. It's just amazing. And I listened to Rich Cimini on DPH on Rothenberg this morning, and we know he's covered the Jets for quite some time. He says this is up there as one of the worst seasons that he's ever seen.
By every metric it is. And Rich, I heard the interview this morning with the guys, said it's the 3rd worst Jets team he's ever covered. Again, I think as Jet fans, many of us are very desensitized to just how bad it is. So we just accept, it's just all bad. This is actually a historic level of ineptitude that we're watching. They started 0-7. No Jet coach in their first year has ever gotten off to worse than an 0-4 start. Glenn started 0-7. Then, when they won a couple games after the trades, it was, they're still playing hard for him. Then they came out against the Miami Dolphins after winning 3 of 5 with some luck, certainly involved in some unbelievable special teams things that don't happen, like 2 returns touchdowns in a game to beat Cleveland, right? They show up against the Dolphins. They're down 21-0 in the first quarter. And from that point on, when you look at what's happened, there is nothing you could point to that tells you this coach, these players have any idea where the direction needs to be for the franchise. So in a year that seemingly only has gotten worse, why wouldn't I expect, based on what we just saw against the Patriots, for the Jets to absolutely lay down on Sunday and get blown out again? I don't care if it's Trubisky for the entire game. It doesn't matter right now when Aaron Glenn's questioning the effort, which is saying that his players quit, then walking it back a day later. Jermaine Johnson scoffing at questions about that. I think he's lost the team, Ty, and I think Sunday's going to be really interesting. Because while the game means nothing, if they quit, if they get embarrassed again, I wonder if internally Woody Johnson wakes up and realizes we're never winning a damn thing with this coach.
So you bring up Aaron Glenn and what he said to the media. So he was asked to reflect on what has been a miserable season. Here's Aaron Glenn.
So I really go back and start to really look at this whole season. Not doing a deep dive into self-reflection just yet, but just start to look at myself, this team. Why am I here? And the expectations that we all had before. And I'm excited about what I go for. This has not been the season that we all wanted. I understand that. But I tell you, there's some things that I really like about what we did. There's some things that we know we have to fix. But I'm excited about going into this game, all right, starting this game and then moving on from this game, going to the offseason of, I don't want to say rebuilding, but looking at this team and how we're going to get this team in a place to where, again, the fans are proud of, we're all proud of, and moving forward. So I'm looking forward to that.
There's nothing to be proud of. At no point this season did I watch the Jets, who do have 3 wins against backup quarterbacks, and thought to myself, I'm proud of the product. I'm proud of where it's trending. And I always hated this parallel to the Detroit Lions, which felt lazy to me because it was, Aaron Glenn was part of the culture building there. Maybe it translates because you know what helped turn it around in Detroit? They had an excellent head coach. Now, people might have soured on him because of, they're missing the playoffs and how he blew the NFC Championship game, but he's a really good damn head coach. You know what didn't happen for Detroit in year one of this turnaround? They didn't fire their defensive coordinator. They didn't have their starting quarterback get benched. There wasn't this much chaos. So this idea that we can look to the Lions as far as like the perfect parallel as to why Jet fans can be encouraged going forward just never made sense to me. Especially when, not to mention, they had their quarterback, a former number 1 overall pick who did play in a Super Bowl.
The Detroit Lions have nothing to do with the New York Jets. The 21 Lions versus the 2025 New York Jets aren't similar at all. But let's play along because, Glenn, I'm sure will reference that as a way to try and say, well, look what happened with them. The Lions in that second year, they finished 9-8. Do the Jets have any chance of having a winning season next year, even going 8-9? Does anyone actually see that happening based on what you have seen this year? By the way, that Lions team in 2021, after their bye week, they finished the year 3-4-1. The Jets have done the total opposite. They have been outscored in the month of December worse than any team in league history. 153-46 over the last 4 games alone. Like, we don't need to pretend what we're watching here, Jet fans, is normal. I was in Houston doing afternoon radio on the ESPN station there when David Culley was the Texans head coach. I know what a one-and-done coach looks like, and Culley actually won 4 games compared to Glenn, who's going to likely finish with 3. I saw what that looked like. I saw the expressions and the different catchphrases at the press conference. I saw him lose the team. And that team had Davis Mills as its quarterback, and we all saw it. Glenn picked Justin Fields, gave him $30 million guaranteed, said we signed him because he was tough to game plan against. He picked Steve Wilkes. He went out there and said, we're running the Wilkes system. You're the head coach. You're supposed to oversee all of this. You're supposed to make improvements. The only thing he could point to is the special teams, because you listen to Mike Westhoff, who recommended Chris Banjo. Great. That's not enough. You have 3 wins. And he highlighted the penalties the other day, too, Ty. They went from 31st in penalties last year to 23 this year. Great. Who cares? At the end of the day, Jacksonville's number 1 in penalties committed. Denver's 4. Chicago is 6. We need to rethink how we even determine how big of a deal penalties are. Like, it's some improvement, but it's not the end-all, be-all. It doesn't make up for the fact you're a national embarrassment, or you're a 3-win team with one of the worst point differentials in the history of the Jets.
That's the point. If you were a competent team that appeared to be heading in the right direction, I could look at a jump from 31st to 23rd in penalties as something to be positive about, because you and I watch every single snap of every game, and we have crushed this team for just mind-boggling, series-ending penalty or series-extending penalties that just drove you nuts. But because you're so awful, because you do nothing right outside of special teams, it's hard for me to sit here and say, you know what, we won't be having this same conversation next year.
And you bring up special teams, right? Isaiah Williams today was voted the Jets team MVP, the Curtis Martin Award winner. And I'm not trying to knock him because his story is amazing. And hand up, when they brought him back after they cut him after the Miami Dolphins debacle on Monday Night Football, I said, what are they doing? He has proved me wrong. Good job by Glenn and Banjo. He's been great. He deserved the award. Awesome. But what does it say about your franchise?
Yes.
When your MVP, voted on by your teammates, is a guy who was cut earlier this year. That's got to be, I haven't had Elias Sports Bureau or ESPN Research check this. This has got to be the first time that a team MVP for an NFL team was cut during that season. Like, you can't make it up. So, like, what are we talking about here? There's no positives from the year. Anyone telling you they have positives, they're lying to you. Ask yourself this question, Jet fans. What does Aaron Glenn do well as a head coach? Gase won 7 games his first year. He did. And the one thing I could say about Gase, and he was terrible, the opening drives were pretty good. They scored. Like, there's not one redeemable quality about Aaron Glenn as a head coach at this point. So, yes, he played for the Jets 30 years ago, but we need to separate our love for him as a player and the respect we have for him wanting this job and just be honest. Do you want this guy picking the quarterback? Do you want this guy trying to set the foundation for what's to come? Why would a top DC coordinator want to work for this guy if he's already on the hot seat? Why would any quarterback want to be here? It's just, why would free agents want to come here without grossly overpaying? It is a mess, and he was supposed to change a lot of it and show signs of positivity in the right direction in year one, and none of that has happened at this point.
You also don't help yourself, and I kept hammering this. For months, I was hammering this because fans love to pretend they see a coach dunk on the media. Oh, Rich Cimini, he's been a negative. He's been covering the Jets. He's been negative. that stuff actually matters because you can't be both unlikable and bad. Like, to your point about having a redeemable quality, fair or unfair, we can afford you some benefit of the doubt if you're a nice guy. So when you walk in here pretending you're the second coming of Bill Parcells, who I know you idolize, that's not going to work when you're 3-14 and your team is a disaster. And so this started, and folks called me, an Aaron Rodgers homer. Say what you want. The fact that they handled that exodus the way that they did, to me, was unprofessional, and it just was unnecessary because it made no sense. He didn't coach Rodgers. It felt like he was trying to
make it personal.
But for what? You didn't coach him. You weren't here last year. If you're trying to create a culture, I would imagine the first thing you want to do is show the locker room, yes, we're going to hold people accountable, but we're also going to do it in a respectful way. We're not going to disrespect a future Hall of Fame, a 4-time league MVP, one of the greatest quarterbacks ever. It was so mind-boggling to me, and people thought it's no big deal. Screw Aaron, send him off. But following that up with the combativeness with the media week after week after week, the silly reindeer games about, Tyrod Taylor, Justin Fields, we need a competitive advantage, as if, Vrabel was losing sleep at night over that. It was just so ridiculous to me, and he has since changed his tune, but I never understood it. And this feels like one of the worst seasons I've ever seen as a Jet fan. And if you asked me, like, what's more likely? Aaron Glenn turns this thing around, or we're here next year having the same conversation? I'm going with the latter, because history tells me a coach like this and a season like this, there is no turnaround that they're on the cusp of having.
The numbers back it up. 4 of the last 17 coaches that started 0-6 or worse actually made the playoffs with their respective teams. One of those coaches is Zach Taylor, who I don't even think is a great coach. He happens to have a Hall of Fame quarterback at Joe Burrow. Sure, we could point to Dan Campbell, but we want to bet on outliers. And again, what does Aaron Glenn do well as a head coach? We know he gets his daily hug from Woody Johnson. Woody said that the last time he publicly spoke. And then after that, what exactly happens? Because he said we're running the Wilkes defense. We know he has nothing to do with the offense. I don't understand how anyone could point to anything of real progress. He lauded the fact they haven't had any field goals blocked. That came up in his list of the 4 things.
It's so embarrassing.
That's where we're at. The bar shouldn't be this low. And I get it. Oh, Jake, they're tanking. What do you expect? The warning signs were there all summer, and then they started 0-7.
They also didn't start the season by trying to tank.
They tried to win. That's why they split Rodgers' cap hit over 2 years to have more money to spend on this year's team. That's why they gave Fields $30 million and grossly overpaid and said he's going to play quarterback. We're going to coach him up. You know how offensive that must be for Mike Tomlin to hear? They had the audacity, or as they say on this show, the unmitigated gall to say publicly, "Hey, Justin Fields has never been coached up properly." He went 4-2 under Mike Tomlin last year, and Mike Tomlin still benched him for a washed Russell Wilson that every Giant fan could speak to.
Who lit the Jets up in Week 7 last year. How
it's
funny
unreal.
Was that? All of this, and people are excited to hear from Don, Hahn, and Rosenberg once they get back. I love Don. I think he is a tremendous talent. All of this that we just said in the first 18 minutes of the show leads to why I was so disappointed and so frustrating just a couple of weeks ago listening to my man Don LaGreca say this.
I think there's a certain fan base, that a certain amount of this fan base, a percentage of this fan base, that for some ungodly reason thought this team was going to win 8 games. And now they're ticked off and want Aaron Glenn to be the guy that failed them. No, I think you failed assessing that this team could be that good. I never thought it. Alan never thought it. I don't think the Jets thought it. But we were taking calls in the summer. Hey, I think this team could be a 7-8 win team. I think it'd be alive in December.
Yeah, I remember.
I don't know why you thought that.
So that presupposes that the only people in the fan base who are irate right now are Jet fans who thought they could win 7 or 8 games, which we know is wholly untrue.
Yep.
Because there are a bunch of Jet fans who I hang out with, who I've spoken to, or I've taken calls from, that said, yeah, I didn't have any expectations, but this is still troubling to me. To watch them be this bad, you could make the case, and it's not a very hard one to make, this is the worst team in football. The single worst team in the NFL. So all of the questions that we had coming into Aaron Glenn's tenure have just magnified. And it's not only coming from those who thought they could have a pretty good season, who thought Justin Fields could become a semblance of what he was expected to be. That's just not true. So I can be mad at Aaron Glenn even if I had zero expectations because that's how bad this thing has been.
He said it. He said it. He took shots at Robert Saleh's coaching staff. He referenced the fact they had the lead in the fourth quarter 7 times a year ago and blew a franchise record 7 games in the fourth quarter. Again, the Jets last year were not a 5-win team if they had a better kicker. How many games did Greg Zuerlein cost them? If they had Nick Folk this year on last year's team, they probably are a 7, if not 8-win team conservatively. They had the worst kicking situation in the NFL. Go back and look. It changed everything last year. And that's not to say last year's team was good or we didn't overrate some of the talent. But again, entering this year, Ty, they had 8 of their 11 starters back. They had an experienced defensive coordinator Glenn couldn't wait to hire. Glenn himself, a defensive coach. They had a former first-team All-Pro on all 3 levels of their defense. And the defense through the first 7 games of the year was off to the worst start in franchise history. There's so many red flags. And again, the only argument people make for retaining this head coach is, it's only a year, or who would come here? Again, that is just an admission that he's not the guy. No one can actually make a real football case why Aaron Glenn should get a second year. Not when you talk the way he did, and everything he promised has been an unmitigated disaster. He said they're here to win now and going forward. He's the one who said, get used to winning, it's all I know. He's the one who signed Fields, hired Wilkes. He's the one who didn't know how long the game-winning field goal was in London. He's the one who said the last 4 minutes of each half belong to the head coach. And they've been horrific all year in that spot. How about the 2 fake punts this past game against New England? He's going for it. Fake punts twice on the same drive inside the 50-yard line. If he's not trying to win, why is he doing that? If he's not trying to win, why did he fire Steve Wilkes? So for the tanking people, enough. He's not qualified to oversee the selection of a quarterback and rebuild this coaching staff after how bad this year has been.
You know what drove me nuts in that game last week? So Drake May is on his way to a perfect first half passer rating. But that almost got interrupted when Jordan Clark deflects the pass and they're 3rd and 7. The Jets are coming off the field on defense. Their offense is about to, get a chance to score some points. And this dude is in Stephon Diggs' face celebrating. Got hit with a taunting penalty. So, of course, Drake May then marches them down the field to score a touchdown. Like, those are symptoms of not just a bad football team, but a poorly coached one.
And guess what?
So this idea that they have bought into a foundation when there's no proof of concept based on results, it's just lunacy to me. The fact that you are getting torched, and Drake May might be the MVP. He's a second-year quarterback in your building, absolutely annihilating your defense, and you've got this dude celebrating when you're down 32-3 at that point.
And Ty, guess how many snaps Jordan Clark missed after that incident?
0.
I thought Aaron Glenn's holding people accountable.
No,
I thought Aaron Glenn's Mr. Accountability.
It's Rich Cimini he wants to hold accountable.
And like,
that's important.
It drives me crazy because I covered David Culley in Houston. I've seen exactly what this looks like. And people acting like, if you get rid of a head coach after a year, it sets you back. Can I give you some names real quick?
Let's do it.
All right. These are the last one-and-done head coaches since 2018. Gerard Mayo, replaced by Mike Vrabel, made the playoffs. Antonio Pierce, replaced by Pete Carroll. He's probably going to get fired, but at least they have the number 1 pick. They'll be able to get a quarterback. Frank Reich, replaced by Dave Canales. If he wins Saturday, a.k.a. tomorrow, they're in the playoffs. Lovie Smith, replaced by DeMeco Ryans, in the playoffs. Nathaniel Hackett, replaced by Sean Payton, in the playoffs. Urban Meyer, replaced by Doug Peterson, made the playoffs that first year. Freddie Kitchens, replaced by Kevin Stefanski, made the playoffs. Steve Wilkes, replaced by Cliff Kingsbury, made the playoffs. Chip Kelly, replaced by Kyle Shanahan, made the playoffs. So there's this idea that you set the franchise back if you make a coach one and done. It's actually the opposite. You actually have a better chance under just recent NFL history to hire the next guy who actually could get you to the playoffs during his tenure as the coach.
It would almost, and actually not even almost, I'm quite certain it would be better if there was no pre-existing relationship between the current head coach and the organization, because part of it has to be Woody's like, man, he's one of us. Played for the Jets. once a Jet, always a Jet. Like, we can't just sever ties because of the history there. So, I mean, listen, we are going to allow you guys to vent. Hit us up, 800-919-3776 on Twitter, at DHR on ESPN, at Jake Asman, at Ty Butler. Or if you're watching us on YouTube, hit us up in the comments. But painfully, Woody Johnson's not firing him, so we just have to hope and pray they get this thing right.
That always works.
And
I've done a lot of hoping the last 15 years.
We're made to look foolish for ever questioning this guy. Ty Butler, Jake Asman, we are with you until 7 o'clock. 800-919-3776. Before we get to the phone calls, I just think that we're going to get to a point where this conversation becomes pointless. I just don't envision a world in which Woody Johnson decides to punt on a head coach that he gave a 5-year contract to and that he trusted not just to coach the team, but to essentially run the entire organization because Darren Mougie's like his sidekick. So as angry as we are, we can be fired up. We can have a venting therapeutic session. He's not going anywhere.
That's the problem, right? Because a real organization would recognize their mistake and do something about it, a la what Robert Kraft did to Gerard Mayo last year. Like, that's what a real organization
But
would
isn't
do.
the flaw in that, and I'll let you finish, comparing the Jets to a well-run Patriots team or organization?
It's fair, but there's other teams that did it. I mean, I was in Houston when they had a preacher running the organization. They fired David Culley, hired
You
Lovie
not a fan
Smith.
of preachers?
Well, they probably shouldn't be the ultimate decision maker of an NFL franchise, as Jack Easterby was. But hey, to each of their own. Again, D'Amico took that job. There were plenty of people who wanted the job when Arizona became available, right? You have the number 1 pick, and that's why I actually think if you're going to do it, the reason why you do it now is Jets are set up with a top 3 pick, 5 first-round picks over the next 2 years, over $100 million in cap space each of the next 2 years. Like, you could build the team the way you want to build it. You have all the resources, plus Garrett Wilson's here. You could bring Brees back. You already have 2 bookend tackles on the left and right side. Tippmann's under contract still. He's a really good guard. You're not completely bereft of talent for a rookie quarterback to be stepping into. Plus, you got Mechie and Mitchell. Like, it's not obviously the roster needs work, but the Jets are discussed like this is an expansion level roster. It's not even the defense following the Sauce and Quinnen deals. You know what drives me crazy? For all when they were winning the games after the trade deadline, well, we got to give Glenn credit. They're playing hard. Look at the defensive players that are still on this team, though. Tremaine Johnson, Jamian Sherwood, Quincy Williams, Harrison Phillips, Brandon Stevens, Jawan Briggs. They've had Will McDonald for every game until this past week when they put him on IR. So, yeah, they don't have Sauce. They don't have Quinnen. Is it really too much to ask for the Jets to not have the worst December in the history of the NFL? Is it really too much to ask for them to not be outscored 153-46? To get beat by an average of 38-11? Are we really asking for that much? Like, that's the problem. He's a defensive coach. They don't have 1 interception. His big decisions with Wilkes, Fields, so on and so forth, the free agent signings, you can go down the line. It all backfired, and he's moved the goalposts so many times. How could Woody Johnson objectively feel good about letting this guy oversee Dante Moore, Fernando Mendoza, or whoever? It's not going to work. We've seen this so many times.
I just love when people pretend like Justin Fields. They didn't really expect much. They gave him $30 million guaranteed. Now I get commensurate with or compared to other quarterbacks, it's not a lot of money, but $30 million guaranteed in year 1 to a quarterback that was your starter
and handed him the job without competition.
Without any competition.
When Glenn said it's all about competition, Joe Tippmann had to compete for the starting center job this summer. What? But Justin Fields, who's in his 5th year and has done nothing but lose as an NFL quarterback,
there's
doesn't?
There's just a lot of revisionist history when folks
their
are
win
like,
total was 6.5, by the way. People act like it was 1 or 2.
Yeah, Vegas
had it at 6.5.
Well, actually, they were tanky. No, they weren't. They were forced into it because all of the decision making and lack of production that led to the 0-7 start to the season. And so it is going to become what did you expect when the head coach literally told you to expect a team you could be proud of. Brandon Stevens did not practice. He's dealing with a neck injury. Stigger's already been ruled out, so the Jets will be down a couple of defensive players in a game that, quite honestly, no one wants to see them win. I just toyed with this idea. Josh Allen's probably going to play the first snap to keep his consecutive game streak alive and then hand the baton over to Mitch Trubisky. Nothing would be same old Jets more than Mitch Trubisky throwing 3 interceptions. Aaron Glenn gets to break out his sideline celebration. They drop down to 7th in the draft. That would be same old Jets.
Fly with them Jets. And then he's going to say in the postgame, he's going to say, look, 2025 was a tough one for us, but we're undefeated in the new year, baby.
Yeah, and then you'll hear Woody say,
I hug him every day.
So it's just, I am deathly, that would drive me crazy.
Oh, I'll go nuts.
If they win this game on Sunday, it would drive me crazy.
There's just no way they will, though. That's the thing.
Say that again, but it's the Jets.
I know, but it's the last game at Ralph Wilson Stadium. Breece Hall is probably not playing. They're starting Brady Cook for another game. I think the defensive players clearly quit on him. I guess it could happen because it is the Jets. But we've been saying, this would be the game they win, right? The Saints game, this is the game they win, right? Bryce Petty beating the Niners a couple of years ago. The Greg Zuerlein kick to beat the Washington Commies a few years ago. There's examples that you could point to. That would have happened already by now, I feel like. I guess it could still happen. It is the Jets.
No,
but I think
wait
they're going to
until
get
week
destroyed.
18 to do it when Josh is not going to play.
I think they get killed.
Yeah, if they get killed by Bills backups, man, what's the conversation going to be like? 7:30 on Sunday night. 800-919-3776. Let's start with Jaquan. He's calling us from New Jersey. Jaquan, what up, man? Happy New Year. Talk to us.
Hey, what's going on, Ty? What's going on, Jake? Happy New Year to you guys.
What's up, baby?
Look, I'm a Jets fan. I'm a diehard Jets fan, but I got to keep it real. This is why people hate the Jets fans. This is why they hate the Jets. They laugh at it. Because we sitting up here getting mad at a coach that one doesn't have a quarterback. And yes, he did bring in Justin Fields.
Jaquan, stop right there. I'm going to let you finish. The coach handpicked this quarterback this past offseason. Let's stop acting like Justin Fields was inherited or someone held a gun to Aaron Glenn's head. It was his decision to give him $30 million guaranteed. You may continue.
Yeah. All right, yeah, he brought him. But we got to stop acting like Justin Fields is not the most bipolar quarterback in the game.
Again,
my man will
it
have
was their decision to
yards
bring him
passing.
in. Okay.
He will have 250 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, and the next game he can't connect to a receiver 4 yards away.
Jaquan, he's never played worse, though. As bad as he might have been in Chicago or Pittsburgh last year, 4-2. He's never been worse as a Jet. That's coaching.
My cousin is a Bears fan. One of my best friends is a Bears. They hated Justin Fields. We don't watch the game, so we don't see how bad it was. But I know people who are literally
Jaquan, you are doing this weird thing that people tend to do when they actually think that they're helping their case, but they're hurting it. Despite all of the criticism of Justin Fields, and you just laid out, you called it bipolar. I wouldn't use that, but sure, you laid that out. They decided to sign him. They gave him $30 million guaranteed. This is not helping your case.
We have the worst owner in the game. He pushed Aaron Rodgers out. We act like we had quarterbacks lined up to come to the Jets. We don't have options like that. Y'all act like we have options at head coach. We had a retread as Rex Ryan. People going crazy for that.
My man.
This is the only guy that wanted the job. We got to get a quarterback. At the end of the day, that's the issue.
You don't want this guy picking the quarterback, Jaquan. Their quarterback coach is a former running back. That's who Glenn hired, Charles London. Look it up. Google him. Look at his resume. What has Tanner Engstrand shown you that he has any clue how to develop a quarterback? What have you seen? You do not get this many chances when you make this many mistakes. It's egregious.
You're making my point now. The point was Mike Vrabel used the Jets to get bread, to get more money. Nobody wants to coach the Jets.
They had to hire Brian Flores. They didn't even interview Mike McCarthy. They could have hired Brian Flores. He was my preference of the candidates they actually spoke to. Don't get me started with the fakakta list that was, but Mike Loxley of Maryland, the head coach there, one of the candidates. They did, again, Jaquan, I understand part of your point is he needs a quarterback. Yes, but how did we get here? So much of how we got here was Aaron Glenn taking a situation that was not ideal and making it a million times worse. We cannot just excuse that. And forget just the offense. They should not be this bad on defense. They are historically bad defensively. They don't have an interception all year. It's never happened in the history of the NFL. That's what we're talking about. There's so many red flags. Wake up.
800-919-3776. I should have asked him, and this is a bad job by me. I should have asked him what his win total expectation was coming into the season. And now, I don't know if he would have been honest, but even the most pessimistic Jet fan, and that's the point here, and why I got so frustrated with Don, even the most pessimistic Jet fan did not envision what Rich Cimini called one of the bottom 3 seasons in Jet history coming into it.
He said it was the coat tight season of 1995. He said it was the Gase season of 2020. You and I were old enough to experience that as true diehards.
2 wins.
And then this year.
And I worked at the Jet broadcast that year. 800-919-3776. We're fired up, baby.
This team, again, it just feels like we care more than the owner does, and I think that's the most disheartening part. That this fan base is so great, so passionate. We've had nothing for 15 straight years. They have one winning season during this playoff drought, and it just feels like if they retain this coach, we're going to be doing the coaching search a year from now anyway, so be proactive for once and recognize a mistake and own it and do what's in the best interest of whoever the young quarterback is they are about to take.